Parental burnout is not about being tired at all. You can sleep 8 hours, take a weekend off, get a full night of quiet, and still feel completely emptied out the moment your child needs something from you. That is not weakness, and it is not bad parenting. Researchers actually have a name for this exact state, and it works nothing like ordinary exhaustion. It has its own triggers, its own symptoms, and its own way of quietly taking over years of family life before anyone names what's happening. Here's the part almost nobody expects. 2 researchers in Belgium, Moira Mikulajczak and Isabel Roskam, spent years studying parents who described feeling like they were running on empty no matter how much they rested. What they found was not depression. It was not ordinary job burnout spilling over into home life. It was something specific to the act of parenting itself, with its own pattern and its own recovery path, separate from anything else going on in that person's life. They identified 3 core signs. First, an overwhelming exhaustion tied directly to the parenting role, not to your job, not to your finances, not to anything else. Second, emotional distancing. You still love your child completely, but you start doing the job on autopilot, present in the room but checked out in feeling, going through the motions of bedtime or homework. Help without actually being there for it. Third, a quiet, creeping sense of loss. You start to feel like you're not the parent you used to be, or not the parent you always pictured yourself being. And here's the detail that surprises most people the first time they hear it. You can have every one of those 3 signs and be completely fine everywhere else. Sharp at work, patient with your friends, energized doing things that have nothing to do with your kids. Then you walk through your front door and feel like there's nothing left. That happens because this kind of burnout is tied specifically to the parenting role, not to your overall capacity to function. It lives inside that one relationship, which is exactly why it's so easy to miss and so easy to feel ashamed of. So how is this actually different from just being tired? Ordinary tiredness resolves. A good night of sleep helps. A weekend away helps. A day off fixes most of it. Parental burnout does not work that way. It builds slowly, over months, sometimes years, one hard day stacked on top of the last one, until exhaustion stops being the exception and quietly becomes the baseline. No single nap undoes years of accumulation. And that slow build-up creates a loop most parents never see happening while they're inside it. It runs like this. Exhaustion builds past a threshold. You snap, or you go numb, or you do both in the same hour. Guilt hits immediately after. You feel like a bad parent for reacting that way, even though the reaction was exhaustion talking, not character. To make the guilt go away, you overcorrect. You say yes to everything. You try to be endlessly patient, endlessly present, endlessly cheerful. That overcorrection costs energy you did not have to spend, which deepens the exhaustion further, which restarts the entire loop from a lower starting point than before. This loop is the mechanism researchers keep returning to because it explains something counterintuitive. The very thing a caring parent does to fix the problem is often what keeps the problem running. And there's a trap door built into that loop that most parents fall through without ever noticing it happen. The trap door is carrying the mental load alone. Not just the physical tasks of parenting, but the constant background work of planning, remembering, deciding, and anticipating everything a household needs, every single day, with no one to hand any of it off to. Researchers studying this have found that parents who feel most alone in carrying that responsibility show the highest burnout scores. And that pattern has less to do with how many hours someone physically works and more to do with how isolated they feel in the decision-making itself. This is also exactly where extended family used to matter more than modern life gives it credit for. For most of human history, parenting was never a 1 or 2 person job. It was shared across grandparents, aunts, uncles, older siblings, and neighbors. An entire network splitting both the physical and mental load of raising children. Researchers studying children's well-being have pointed out that consistent grandparent involvement correlates with lower parental stress and better outcomes for kids specifically. Remove that network, and 1 or 2 adults end up holding what used to be distributed across many. So if you feel isolated in this, that isolation is not a personal failing. It's a structural one, built by how modern family life is arranged. And here's where a genuinely manipulative layer enters the picture, and you deserve to see it clearly so you can push back against it. There is an entire industry built around the image of the endlessly patient, always put together parent. Curated posts, parenting advice sold with a side of guilt, products marketed on the implicit message that a good parent would already own this. All of it quietly raises the bar for what parenting is supposed to look like on an ordinary Tuesday. None of that content creates burnout by itself, but it feeds directly into the overcorrection stage of the loop you just learned about. It turns ordinary struggling into what feels like private failure, when it's actually just what any unsupported nervous system does under chronic, unrelieved load. Recognizing that pressure for what it is, a curated performance, not a realistic standard anyone actually lives up to, is one of the simplest ways to loosen its grip. So, what actually helps? Researchers studying parental burnout point to a short list of concrete things, and none of them require quitting a job or rebuilding your entire life. 1. Name it. Simply recognizing this as parental burnout, a documented, studied experience with a name, rather than a personal character flaw, measurably reduces the shame that keeps parents stuck and silent about it instead of getting support. 2. Redistribute the mental load, not just the physical chores. It doesn't lighten much if someone else does the dishes while you're still the only one tracking the dentist appointment, the permission slip, and the birthday gift in your head. Handing off actual decisions, not just tasks, is what researchers measure as genuinely protective. 3. Build one small, steady connection outside the household. A grandparent, a friend, a neighbor, even brief but regular contact. Isolation is one of the strongest predictors of burnout severity that researchers consistently find, so this one thread matters far more than it seems like it should. 4. Lower the performance. Perfectionism is one of the most consistent risk factors identified in parental burnout research. Letting go of the polished version of parenting you feel obligated to perform frees up real, usable energy for the parts that actually matter. 5. Protect a small piece of time that is non-negotiably yours, even 15 minutes every single week. It isn't indulgent and it isn't selfish. It's basic maintenance that keeps the tank from hitting empty in the first place. And here's the payoff that makes acting on any of this worth it. That second symptom, the emotional distancing, is the one that actually reaches your child. Not the exhaustion itself and not even the guilt. The distance. Catching this early protects the exact connection you're exhausted from trying to maintain in the first place. Researchers are clear that this is a state, not a permanent trait, and states change the moment the load underneath them changes. Recovery here is real, it's documented, and it starts with something as small as saying the word burnout out loud instead of carrying it silently. Send this to a parent running on empty, because parental burnout was never about being tired at all.